When Deathworlders finally broke, no more playing nice Part 1. The Long Patience Ambassador. Alara Vasquez stood at the window of her office and watched the alien ships drift past the station. She had worked here for 23 years. In all that time, she had learned one simple truth. Humanity was tolerated, not welcomed. The Galactic Concordance was 12,000 years old. It included over 200 species from across the stars. Humanity had joined only 2 centuries ago, and in that time, they had never been treated as equals. The reason was simple. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. To the rest of the galaxy, humans were monsters born from a nightmare planet. Alara remembered her first day as a junior diplomat. A Velith ambassador had refused to shake her hand. He said her touch felt like gripping hot iron. She had smiled and apologized. That was what humans did. They smiled. They apologized. They made themselves smaller so others would feel safe. Her communicator buzzed. Another complaint from the Crix trade delegation. Human merchants were too aggressive in negotiations. Human workers were unsettling the local population on a mining colony. Human soldiers had frightened their concordance. Allies during a joint training exercise. Elara handled each complaint the same way she always did. She apologized. She promised to address the concerns. She reminded humanity to be more careful, more gentle, more aware of how their very existence made others uncomfortable. This was the price of belonging. Or so they had been told. The truth was that humanity had become useful to the Concordance. When there was a mission too dangerous for other species, humans were sent. When a planet had toxic air or crushing gravity, humans were deployed. When a war needed soldiers who could survive what would kill anyone else, humans volunteered. They did this because they wanted to prove themselves. They wanted to show that Deathworlders could be civilized. They wanted to belong. For 200 years, they paid this price in blood. Alara was reading through the daily reports when a message arrived marked urgent. The colony ship Meridian Hope had gone silent 3 months ago in neutral space. 40,000 civilians, families, children, all vanished without a trace. She had filed the standard inquiry when it happened. The Concordance Security Council had promised to investigate. Weeks passed, then months. Finally, they delivered their conclusion, an unfortunate navigational error. The ship had strayed into an unstable region of space. A tragic accident. Nothing more. Alara had accepted this. She had written the official condolences. She had attended the memorial service. She had moved on because that was what diplomats did. But then a friend in the intelligence division sent her a file. It was buried deep in classified communications, hidden behind layers of security that should have kept it secret forever. What Alara found inside changed everything. The Meridian Hope had not been destroyed by accident. It had been attacked. The Larathi hegemony, one of the founding members of the Concordance, had sent a fleet to intercept it. They had disabled its engines, boarded it, and executed everyone on board. 40,000 men, women, and children, killed in cold blood. The reason was stated clearly in the communications. The Larathi considered human expansion a long-term threat to galactic stability. The Meridian Hope was heading to establish a new colony. The Larathi decided this colony should never exist. So they destroyed the ship and everyone on it. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the Concordance Council knew. They had reviewed the evidence. They had seen the Lorathi's confession. And they had voted unanimously to classify it as an accident. They had chosen to protect the Larathi, rather than seek justice for 40,000 dead humans. Alara sat in her office for a long time after reading the file. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply sat and thought about all the years she had spent apologizing. All the time she had told her people to be patient. All the blood humanity had spilled in service to a concordance that saw them as useful animals at best and dangerous pests at worst. She forwarded the file to the human coalition government with a single note. They knew. They all knew. The response came within hours. Not rage, not demands for war. Something quieter and far more dangerous. A question that spread through every human world, whispered in homes and shouted in assemblies, repeated until it became impossible to ignore. How long have we been dying for them? The answer was 200 years. 200 years of smiling while being insulted. 200 years of apologizing for the crime of being born on a harsh world. 200 years of bleeding and dying for people who would never see them as anything but monsters. Director General Samuel Okonkwo called an emergency session of the Human Coalition. Representatives from every human world attended. For the first time in their history as a spacefaring species, they did not discuss how to make the concordance more comfortable with their existence. They discussed what humanity had lost by trying so hard to belong. The list was long. Ships sent on suicide missions. Soldiers used as expendable shields. Colonies denied resources that went to more deserving species. Trade deals that favored everyone except humans. And now 40,000 civilians murdered with the full knowledge and protection of the galactic government. We have been patient, Okonkwo said to the assembly. We have been kind. We have done everything they asked and more. And this is how they repay us. Not with respect, not with equality, but with murder and lies. He paused and looked at the representatives. Many of them had spent their careers, like Ilara, trying to make peace work. They had believed that if humanity just tried hard enough, they would eventually be accepted. That belief died in the silence that followed Okonkwo's words. I am not calling for war, he continued. I am calling for truth. The truth is that we have been fools. We have been so desperate to belong that we forgot our own worth. That ends now. Not with violence. Not yet. But with clarity. We will no longer pretend that we are less than we are. We will no longer apologize for surviving our own world. And we will never, ever forget what they did to the Meridian Hope. Ilara watched the broadcast from her office. Outside the window, the alien ships continued to drift past, unaware that everything had changed. The Concordance did not know it yet, but humanity had stopped smiling. The long patience was over, and what came next would shake the galaxy to its core. When Deathworlders finally broke, no more playing nice Part 2, The Quiet Withdrawal 6, months after the truth about the Meridian Hope spread through human space, Captain Marcus Chun received an order that would have made him proud a year ago. Now it made him sick. He commanded a joint peacekeeping force on Velar 7, a mining world where local workers had risen up against Concordance corporations. His unit included 200 humans and 50 Velar soldiers. The mission was to secure a reactor complex that had been damaged in the fighting. The problem was radiation. The reactor was leaking. The levels were high enough to kill a Velith in minutes. Humans could survive for hours, maybe days, before the damage became fatal. The Concordance Command expected Marcus to send his people in while the Velith waited safely outside. This had always been the pattern. Humans were Deathworlders. They could survive what killed others. So they were always the ones sent into the fire. Marcus looked at the order on his screen. He thought about the Meridian Hope. He thought about his soldiers, many of whom had served with him for years. He thought about all the times he had followed orders like this without question, believing that sacrifice would earn humanity respect. Then he sent his reply. Negative. Find someone else to die for your profit margins. The Concordance commander was shocked. This had never happened before. Humans always obeyed. Humans always sacrificed. That was why they were useful. Marcus was relieved of command within the hour. But something strange happened. His soldiers refused to serve under his replacement. They requested transfers. All of them. Every single human in the unit chose to leave rather than continue the mission. Word spread quickly through human military channels. Marcus Chun had said no. And nothing terrible had happened. The sky had not fallen. The Concordance had been forced to find another solution, one that did not involve human bodies absorbing lethal radiation. Across the galaxy, similar refusals began to cascade. Human emergency responders stopped volunteering for missions that would kill them slowly. Human engineers declined to repair equipment in conditions that were merely survivable rather than safe. Human soldiers requested transfers out of mixed units, where they had always been used as expendable assets. The Concordance was confused, then annoyed, then angry. Ambassador Alara Vasquez was summoned to explain humanity's sudden lack of cooperation. She stood before the council, the same council that had covered up the murder of 40,000 of her people, and listened to their complaints. The Velith representative called human behavior disappointing. The Crix ambassador suggested that humans had forgotten their place. The Lorothy delegate, showing no shame at all, warned that continued resistance would have consequences. Alara delivered her response with perfect diplomatic calm. Humanity has served the Concordance faithfully for 2 centuries. We have bled for this alliance. We have died for it. And in return, we have been treated as tools to be used and discarded. Recent events have made clear that this arrangement benefits only one side. We are not refusing to cooperate. We are refusing to be expendable. The Council was not satisfied. They passed a formal resolution condemning humanity's violation of treaty obligations. Economic sanctions were proposed. The Lorothy pushed hardest for punishment, eager to crush human resistance before it grew. But the sanctions took time to organize. And while the Concordance debated, humanity was busy, on Earth's moon, hidden inside a research station called Prometheus. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led a team of scientists who had been working in secret for decades. Their mission was simple: discover what humanity could achieve if they stopped holding back. For 200 years, humans had shared their technology freely with the Concordance. They had given away their innovations, hoping to earn trust. In return, they were denied access to advanced alien sciences. They were told their minds were too primitive to understand. They were kept deliberately behind. But humans had not stopped learning. They had simply stopped showing what they learned. Yuki's team had made breakthroughs in propulsion, weapons, material science, and medicine. They had developed technologies that the Concordance believed impossible for a Deathworlder species. All of it had been hidden, waiting for a day that everyone hoped would never come. That day had arrived. The sanctions passed. The Concordance expected humanity to suffer. They expected the Deathworlders to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, ready to resume their role as useful monsters. Instead, humanity went quiet. Human ships stopped appearing at Concordance ports. Human workers finished their contracts and went home. Human diplomats maintained minimum contact and said nothing of importance. The galaxy watched and wondered what was happening inside human space. Some species felt worried. Others felt relieved that the Deathworlders were finally learning their lesson. None of them understood what was really happening in the final weeks before everything changed. Alara Vasquez resigned her position as ambassador. She had spent her career building bridges, and now she watched those bridges burn. But she did not feel sad. She felt free. She sent one last message to the Concordance Council. It was not a plea or a warning. It was simply a statement of fact. You have mistaken our patience for weakness. You have confused our kindness with submission. You believe that because we chose peace, we were incapable of war. You were wrong about all of it, and that error will define the rest of your history." The council dismissed her message as the bitter words of a failed diplomat. They had no idea that across human space, factories were running day and night. Ships were being built. Soldiers were training with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had spent 200 years learning how to smile while being kicked. Now they were done smiling. The quiet withdrawal was almost complete. And when humanity finally showed its true face, the Concordants would learn what it meant to make enemies of those who had survived a Deathworld. The lesson would not be gentle. When Deathworlders finally broke, no more playing nice Part 3, the revelation. The Concordant sanctions had been in effect for 3 months. In that time, human trade with alien worlds had dropped to almost nothing. Human workers had returned home. Human ships no longer carried goods between the stars. The council was pleased. They expected humanity to starve. They expected desperate messages begging for relief. They expected the Deathworlders to remember their place. Instead, they got silence. And then they got something far worse. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the HSS Prometheus, named after the research station where she had spent 20 years uncovering humanity's hidden potential. She had been promoted to lead what the human coalition called the Revelation Fleet. Its purpose was simple: show the galaxy what humans really were. The first sign came at the border station of Nexus 4, a major trade hub controlled by the Crix. A human diplomatic vessel requested permission to dock. The Crix, following Concordant sanctions, refused. They expected the ship to turn around and leave. Instead, it accelerated. Not toward the station, but past it, at a speed that should have been impossible. Crix sensors tracked the vessel as it crossed their entire system in minutes using a drive technology they had never seen before. By the time they realized what had happened, the human ship was gone. Similar incidents occurred across the galaxy over the following days. Human ships appeared in places they should not have been able to reach. They moved faster than any known technology allowed. They passed through defensive systems as if they did not exist. The Concordants demanded answers. How did the humans have this technology? Where had it come from? Humans were supposed to be primitive. Their ships were supposed to be slow, their weapons crude. Their science generations behind the advanced species. Admiral Tanaka gave them their answer in a broadcast that reached every corner of the galaxy. She stood in her uniform, calm and steady, with the stars visible behind her. Her fleet surrounded her flagship, each ship a testament to what humanity had been hiding. "For 200 years, we showed you what you expected to see," she said. "You believed humans were barely civilized. You believed our technology was primitive. You believed we were useful only as expendable labor, good for dying in places where your precious species could not survive. We let you believe this. It was easier that way. Safer. We hoped that if we seemed harmless, you would eventually accept us." She paused, and the camera pulled back to show more of her fleet. The ships were sleek and powerful, nothing like the clunky vessels humans had shown the galaxy before. "We were wrong to hope. You murdered 40,000 of our people and called it policy. You covered it up and expected us to accept it. So we stopped pretending. These ships you see are not prototypes. They are not experiments. They are the standard production models of a fleet we have been building in secret for over a century. Our drives are faster than yours. Our weapons are more powerful than yours. Our soldiers can fight in conditions that would kill your best troops in seconds." The broadcast continued as human forces demonstrated their capabilities across the galaxy. Ships that could enter the crushing atmosphere of gas giants and emerge unharmed. Weapons that cracked planetary shields with single shots. Soldiers in combat suits that let them operate in hard vacuum, extreme radiation, and temperatures that would melt standard equipment. Every demonstration was precise. No civilian targets. No unnecessary destruction. Just a clear message. You never knew us at all. Director General Samuel Okonkwo appeared next to Admiral Tanaka for the final part of the broadcast. He was older now, the weight of leadership visible in his face, but his voice was strong. You called us Deathworlders. You meant it as an insult. A reminder that we came from a planet so hostile that surviving it made us monsters in your eyes. For 200 years, we accepted that label. We smiled and served and bled, hoping to earn your approval. We held ourselves back because we did not want you to fear us. He stepped forward, and his expression hardened. The Meridian Hope carried 40,000 of our children. Families who wanted nothing more than to build new lives among the stars. Your concordance murdered them and called it a preventive measure. Your council voted to hide the truth and protect the killers. So let me be absolutely clear about what happens now. His voice dropped to something cold and final. We are no longer asking for a seat at your table. We are no longer playing nice. We are no longer holding back. You wanted to see what Deathworlders really are. Watch carefully. You are about to learn. The broadcast ended, but its effects had only begun. Panic spread through the concordance. Species that had dismissed humans for centuries suddenly realized they had been living next to a predator they had never understood. The Velith demanded emergency military consultations. The Krix began quietly reaching out to human diplomats. Smaller species, those who had also been mistreated by the dominant powers, watched with something that looked almost like hope. The Larathi hegemony responded differently. They had been the ones to destroy the Meridian Hope. They had been the loudest voices calling for human punishment. And now they were terrified of what humanity might do in return. Their fear made them stupid. Before the concordance could organize a response, before diplomacy could even be attempted, the Larathi fleet launched a preemptive strike against 3 human border colonies. They believed that attacking first would catch humanity off guard. They believed that destroying enough human worlds would break the Deathworlders' will to fight. They were wrong. They were catastrophically, fatally wrong. And in the ruins of their miscalculation, the galaxy would finally learn what it meant to make war against those who had evolved on hell itself. When Deathworlders finally broke No More Playing Nice Part 4, The Reckoning, the Larathi fleet arrived at New Brisbane expecting an easy victory. They brought 300 warships, the largest attack force assembled in a century. Their admiral had promised the hegemony leadership that the human colony would be ash within hours. What they found instead was Captain Marcus Chun, the same officer who had refused to send his soldiers into a radioactive reactor. He had been reassigned to the Colonial Defense Force after his act of defiance. Now he commanded a fleet of 32 ships, less than 1/10 the size of the Larathi Armada. The Larathi admiral sent a message demanding immediate surrender. He expected the humans to flee or beg for mercy. Deathworlders were savage, yes, but they were also supposed to be stupid. Surely they would recognize when they were outmatched. Marcus Chun's reply was short. You are not welcome here. Leave now or do not leave at all. The Larathi opened fire. What followed would be studied by military historians for centuries. The human ships did not behave like any vessels the Larathi had fought before. They moved in patterns that seemed impossible, accelerating and turning in ways that should have torn them apart. Their weapons fired faster and hit harder than anything in the Concordance arsenal. The first wave of Larathi ships was destroyed in minutes. The admiral ordered his fleet to regroup, but the humans did not give them time. Marcus Chun's forces split into smaller groups, each one targeting a different section of the enemy formation. They used the debris of destroyed ships as cover. They fired through gaps in Larathi shields that should not have existed. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Lorthi had lost 240 ships. Human losses were 12 vessels, with most of their crews rescued by nearby ships. New Brisbane was untouched. Not a single weapon had reached the colony's surface. The Lorthi admiral survived. He was captured when his flagship lost power and drifted into human range. His first words to his captors were a question. How? How is this possible? Marcus Chen answered him simply. You spent 2 centuries teaching us that our lives meant nothing to you. We spent those same centuries learning how to make sure that would never be true again. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. The Concordance was stunned. A founding member of their alliance had been humiliated by a species they had dismissed as barely civilized. The impossible had happened, and it was only the beginning. Humanity did not wait for the Concordance to react. They did not negotiate. They did not ask for apologies or offer terms. For the first time in galactic history, a lesser species went on the offensive against a major power. The human counterattack was precise and devastating. Admiral Yuki Tanaka led the main fleet into Lorthi space, targeting military installations with surgical accuracy. Shipyards were destroyed. Weapons platforms were dismantled. Command centers were captured or eliminated. Human soldiers, in their advanced combat suits, fought in conditions that Lorthi troops could not survive, but humanity was careful. They did not bomb cities. They did not target civilian populations. They did not do to the Lorthi what the Lorthi had done to the Meridian Hope. Their goal was not revenge. It was something far more frightening to those who had abused them for so long. Their goal was to demonstrate that they could destroy the Lorthi completely, and then choose not to dot in 3 weeks. The Lorthi hegemony was defenseless. Their fleet was gone. Their military infrastructure was rubble. Their government was in chaos. They had been a founding member of the Concordance, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. And now they could not even protect their own homeworld. The other concordant species watched in horror. The Veloth offered to mediate, suddenly eager to be seen as friends of humanity. The Krix proposed economic arrangements that were far more generous than anything they had offered before. Smaller species, those who had been treated as poorly as humans, began to openly support the Deathworlders. The Concordance Council convened an emergency session. They were desperate to end the conflict before humanity decided to target anyone else. They sent a diplomatic delegation to negotiate. Director General Samuel Okonkos met them personally on a space station in neutral territory. He sat across from ambassadors who had spent their careers treating humanity with contempt. Now they were polite. Now they were respectful. Now they wanted to talk. Okonkwo presented humanity's terms. Full reparations for the Meridian Hope. A public acknowledgement of the atrocity and the cover-up. Complete restructuring of the Concordance to give equal standing to all species, including Deathworlders. And finally, every council member who had voted to hide the truth would face trial for their role in protecting murderers. The ambassadors were shocked. They had expected to negotiate. They had expected to offer minor concessions and return to something like the old arrangement. Surely the humans would be reasonable. Surely they would accept a compromise. Okonkwo shook his head slowly. You still do not understand, he said. We are not negotiating. We are informing you. The universe you knew is over. The old Concordance died when you chose to protect the killers of our children. The question now is not whether things will change. The question is whether you will be part of what comes next, or whether you will be remembered only as an example of what happens to those who mistook patience for weakness. The ambassadors returned to the council with humanity's terms. Some species accepted immediately. Others argued that the demands were too extreme, that humanity was being unreasonable. But the debate was already becoming irrelevant. The galaxy was changing whether the Council approved or not. And those who refused to change would soon learn that the reckoning had only begun. When Deathworlders finally broke No More Playing Nice Part 5, No More Playing Nice, the Concordance was falling apart. Some species rushed to ally with humanity, eager to be on the winning side. Others tried to stay neutral, hoping to avoid the storms of change sweeping through the galaxy. But the Larathi and their closest allies had one final plan. Deep in ancient Concordance archives, there was a weapon that had not been used in 8,000 years. It was called the Stellar Destabilizer, a device capable of making a star collapse into itself. The Concordance had built it long ago, during a war that nearly destroyed them, and then hidden it away when peace returned. Now the Larathi found it. They believed that if they could destroy Earth's sun, humanity would be broken forever. Without their homeworld, the Deathworlders would scatter and fade. The galaxy could return to normal. They were wrong about many things, but they were most wrong about this. Humanity had known about the weapon for over a century. Intelligence reports about the Stellar Destabilizer had reached human leadership during the early years of Concordance membership. It was one of many secrets they had discovered while pretending to be ignorant. They had studied it. They had planned for it. And when the Larathi began moving toward the hidden station where the weapon was stored, humanity was ready. Commander Zara Eulerin led the strike team. She was 42 years old, a veteran of a dozen missions that the Concordance had never known about. Her unit consisted of 200 soldiers, each one trained to fight in conditions that would kill any other species in the galaxy. The station was hidden in the atmosphere of a gas giant, protected by storms that would crush normal ships and radiation that would cook normal crews. The Larathi believed it was completely secure. They did not know that human ships had been designed specifically to enter such environments. Zara's team arrived while the Larathi scientists were still preparing the weapon. The battle inside the station was brutal and close. Human soldiers fought in corridors filled with toxic gas, in chambers where the gravity shifted without warning, in conditions that should have been impossible for any living thing. They lost 60 soldiers, 60 men and women who gave their lives to prevent the destruction of Earth, but they succeeded. The Stellar Destabilizer was captured intact. Its activation sequence stopped minutes before completion. When the news reached the Concordance Council, the last resistance collapsed. Species that had been arguing against human demands suddenly changed their positions. The threat of the ancient weapon had reminded everyone what was really at stake. Director General Samuel Okonkwo addressed the galaxy one final time. Behind him, visible through the windows of his ship, the captured Stellar Destabilizer hung in Earth's orbit. It was not pointed at any world. It was simply there, a reminder of what had almost happened and what could still happen if the lessons of this war were forgotten. For 200 years, we earned your trust with blood and sacrifice, Okonkwo said. We served your Concordance faithfully. We died on your missions. We smiled while you insulted us. We apologized for the crime of being born on a harsh world. And you repaid us with contempt, with murder, with lies. When we finally stopped pretending, you tried to destroy our sun. He paused, and his expression shifted from anger to something more complex, something that looked almost like sadness. We could end you, all of you. We have the power now. We have the weapons and the ships and the soldiers. We could do to you what you did to the Marian Hope, and there would be no one to stop us. But that is not who we are. That is not what we fought for. He stepped forward, and his voice grew stronger. We fought because our children deserve better than to be acceptable losses. We fought because no species should have to apologize for surviving their own world. We fought to prove that strength and mercy are not opposites. The old Concordance is dead. In its place, we will build something new. A commonwealth where every species has equal standing, where Deathworlders are not feared or despised, but respected, where no council can vote to cover up murder because the victims were considered lesser beings. The new Galactic Commonwealth was ratified within the year. Humanity took its place not as a ruler, but as an equal partner. The Lorathi were held accountable for their crimes, their leadership tried and sentenced, their military permanently reduced. Other species that had been mistreated by the old hierarchy finally had voices in galactic affairs. It was not a perfect peace. Change never is. But it was a beginning. 5 years later, a memorial was built in orbit around the site where the Meridian Hope had been destroyed. 40,000 names were inscribed on its walls, each one illuminated by starlight. Families came to remember. Survivors came to mourn. And the galaxy came to witness what happens when cruelty is answered, not with more cruelty, but with justice. Ambassador Alara Vasquez, now old and retired, attended the memorial's dedication. She had spent her career building bridges that others burned. She had watched her people transform from smiling servants to respected equals. She had seen the best and worst of what the galaxy could offer. A young Lorathi diplomat approached her as the ceremony ended. He was part of the new generation, raised in the aftermath of the war, taught to see humans differently than his ancestors had. "Ambassador," he said hesitantly, "may I ask you something?" Alara nodded. "After everything that happened, after what my people did, why did humanity not seek revenge? You had the power. You could have destroyed us completely. Why did you show mercy?" Alara looked at the memorial wall, at the 40,000 names glowing softly in the darkness. She thought about all the years of patience, all the years of hoping things would change, all the blood that had been spilled before and after humanity finally said enough. "Because we never wanted to rule you," she said finally. "We never wanted to become what you were. We just wanted you to stop making us pay for the crime of surviving our own world." She turned to face him directly, and her eyes were kind but firm. "We stopped playing nice. We showed you what we really were. But that was never about hate. It was about truth. The truth is that we are strong enough to destroy you and wise enough not to. The truth is that mercy means nothing if it comes from weakness. The truth is that we are Deathworlders, and we are proud of it. We do not need your fear or your worship. We only ever needed your respect." The young diplomat was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed his head in acknowledgement and walked away, carrying with him an understanding that would shape his entire life. Alara stayed at the memorial until the stars began to shift. Somewhere out there, human and alien ships patrolled together, guarding a peace that had been earned through fire. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed. And the 40,000 lives lost on the Meridian Hope had not been forgotten. They had become the foundation of something better. The Deathworlders had finally stopped playing nice. And the galaxy, for the first time in 12,000 years, had learned to see them clearly, not as monsters, not as tools, but as equals. That was enough. That was everything.